Will democracy survive the next couple of years?
Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now, in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence, with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome to this edition of Access Democracy. It is my pleasure today to be the guest host. I am retired Justice Paul H. Anderson, and we have as our guest today Robert Hennessey. I have to make a disclosure. Bob is a friend, former law school classmate, and what we're going to talk about today is a very difficult topic that is going to be put both of us to the test to get it done within the 26 and a half minutes we have, Bob. So give us a greeting, Bob.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Bob, I'm going to, because of time, Bob is a very distinguished lawyer. He clerked for Federal Circuit Court Judge Gerald Haney. That means, if anybody knows the protocol, is that he did very well in law school to get that position. Practiced with the law firm of Lindquist and Vennon. I was going to list, Bob, any number of prominent cases that you handled, and you said, no, we got to get to the crux of this.
Got to get to it.
Okay, so I'm going to transition to, Bob, you were a close friend of former Vice President Walter Mondale. Is that correct?
I was honored to be a friend of his, yes. He has a lot of close friends.
I know.
Had a lot of close friends.
But Mondale has some responsibility for your interest in this topic, which today we want to get to is the disclosure of information and dockets with respect to the Kennedy assassination. What's that connection?
Well, I had attended a couple of his classes at the Humphrey Institute on the executive branch and the various. And he called me one day and said, there's going to be a seminar for the church committee. We're going to
Bob, you got to look straight at me. I don't know.
Yeah, the church committee. And I said, well, I'm interested in that. And he said, well, come on out. And he gave me it. And so in 2013, in the fall, sometime in September, I went out to the Georgetown Law School. And that's what started me on this adventure of doing research on the Kennedy assassination.
For a little bit of background, what is the church committee?
The church committee was a committee in the Senate. Mondale was the head of domestic issues, and other issues, international, et cetera, were headed by other senators. And the church committee was basically issue of our intelligence service and the regulation of our intelligence service and what had gone on in the years prior to the 1975, when the church committee started its activity.
And they were looking at things associated with the Kennedy assassination. Is that correct?
Well, they were looking at things broadly, and they added through two senators took the role of being responsible for it. One was Gary Hart of Colorado, and the other was Pennsylvania's Senator Schweiker.
So how did this whole Kennedy thing come up and pique your interest in following through on it?
Well, it came up in a kind of a serendipity way. We were at breakfast, and
Who's the we at the breakfast?
I was Vice President Mondale, Locke Johnson, a professor who had been been a staffer on the church committee, and William Miller, who was the chief of staff of the committee.
So some pretty knowledgeable people about the committee, right?
Pretty knowledgeable people, yeah.
So what happened at that lunch?
Well, in the midst of it, Mondale was telling it that he had just been interviewed by William Colby's sons, who had been Colby had been the CIA director during this period of time. And in the midst of that, William Miller said, you know, I remember when Colby came into my office with those boards with the blow-ups of the individuals who were in Dealey Plaza at the time, and he indicated that they were with the CIA.
Wait, just a minute. Colby had pictures showing that CIA people were in Dealey Plaza?
That's what William Miller indicated to all of us.
How did Mondale react to this?
He turned to me and said, Bob, I haven't heard it. I never heard that before. And that's an exact quote, because I would
So were you a bit surprised to find that there's pictures like this were not disclosed to the committee or widely known?
Well, I didn't make any decisions about whether to disclose it to the committee, but they ultimately, I tried to locate them in the archives and was unable to locate those boards with the pictures on it. It was a board about 20 by 24, I guess, something.
Yeah.
And a briefing board would probably be the biggest analogy I would make. And they were pictures on that, as I said. I mean, that's what Bill Miller said.
So this is what launched you on this investigation to find out what information may be lacking in the public sphere with respect to the assassination?
That's correct.
Now, I need to make a disclosure is that Bob is one of the more informed people about the information surrounding the Kennedy assassination, which brings us to the topic at hand. Is there information right now that should be disclosed?
Well, there's information right now that has been postponed since I think it's 2017, October of 2017. It was supposed to have been produced at that time, and it was postponed till this year. And there was some documents produced, but it's now postponed until December of next year, and they're very guesses that have been made about how many are, and I've seen as many as 15,000 documents. Guess what's got to be that still have to be produced, and this is almost it's all, it goes all the way back to the Kennedy assassination, which is now approaching 60 years ago.
So who controls whether those documents get released? I mean, we're talking about the current time that
President of the United States ultimately controls it. And
the president.
Right. President of the United States.
So what did Trump do in 2017?
He, on the day of the time when it was supposed to be produced, he had to, I am told, he had the head of the CIA, a different under Trump, was in his office trying to get the postponement of the release of the documents, and he ultimately did that and postponed it until the year. I think it was 4 years. He
October 24th, 2021. So essentially, Trump kicked the can down the road and put the ball in the court of the next president.
That's true.
So what is the current president, Biden, done with respect to those documents?
Well, he's released some of them, and I cannot tell you. I haven't been able to go to the archives, but there's many more than have been released, and the date for release now is set. And my understanding is December of December of this year, 22.
No, but Bob, Congress has said that those documents should be released. Has it not?
Congress has said those documents, and there should be a presumption that they will be released. But it said if the president finds that they are in fact national security, the president can make such a finding and not release them. And that's been going on for a while.
But the Warren Commission concluded that there was a sole perpetrator of the crime, Lee Harvey Oswald. So what reason could the CIA have not to disclose him? Because the conclusion is that Oswald did it.
Well, I kind of apply the same logic you do, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what the logic is why, if Lee Harvey Oswald was a solo shooter and nobody else, then, let's get on with having the documents released. Now, you have to understand that there is a issue regarding whether Lee Harvey Oswald is a sole shooter. And even the House committee found that it was likely that there was a conspiracy to kill President Kennedy.
I'm going to go off on a tangent here. There is a Minnesota connection with all of these documents, and it goes to federal judge Jack Tunheim. He had a role in making some decisions with respect to these documents, did he not?
Yes, he did. He was the chairman of the Kennedy Assassination Records Review Board, and he was the chairman of it. And
you don't know this, but Tunheim says that he thinks those documents should be released. And I asked him why they weren't and where the lobbying pressure is coming from. He was very candid. It said it's the CIA.
Well, I can't add much to that other than I've got pretty good information that the head of the CIA during the Trump administration was in his office at like 5 o'clock at night the day they were supposed to be released. But
so
Bob, you can go and check with the who visited the president on that day. That's documented as a document.
Bob, what will we possibly learn if these documents are released?
Well, I mean, you can learn some of the disputed stuff that is out there. I mean, there have been people, your fellow citizens in the United States, who have worked on this issue of the release of the Kennedy administration, or the release of the documents and pictures regarding President Kennedy and the assassination. They've been doing this since the assassination, which was November 22nd, 1963. And I'm telling you, there's some really good basic work that's been done by those groups of people.
So some of those people have raised some names that have connections with the CIA. Among those are E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis. Those names may be familiar to people because they're tied to Watergate. Is it possible that these documents will shed some light on their role?
Well, it's always possible that they will be shed light. I mean, there's some real research that has gone on with respect to both those individuals, and the research includes, and this is sort of jumping ahead of my chronological, but in 1975, President Ford appointed a very blue ribbon commission to look at those two individuals, just their participation, if any, with respect to the assassination of Kennedy. And I'll speak about that a little bit more later, but I mean, those two individuals were pointed out because of the information that had been coming out about them.
Now, I don't want to jump ahead, but this gets to this issue of what they call the Three Trams.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on what the Three Trams issue is?
Well, as many of the viewers will know that both Sturgis and Hunt were part of Watergate. And when Watergate occurred, their pictures were, all over the United States. And people started to say, those guys look like the Three Trams. And eventually there was a book published saying they were the Three Trams. And what happened then was President Ford put this Blue Ribbon Commission together, and the first question asked in chapter 19 about was whether the Sturgis and E. Howard Hunt had known each other, how long they had known each other. And both of those individuals lied to the church committee, to the Rockefeller Commission, which was the name of what President Ford had President Ford had named it the group that he appointed.
Is there evidence that shows that they knew each other longer than that?
Yeah, there's evidence. You get his son's book, and he tells you flat out, my father lied about not knowing. And then you go to the.
So that's Hunt's son?
That's Hunt's son, yes. And then you go to the documents which occurred. And this was after the Watergate. They interviewed Dorothy Hunt, who was the wife of E. Howard Hunt, and asked her questions during a session that was recorded by the FBI, and it's recorded as on a document called a 302, which, and in that document, she admits that her husband lied also, that he had known Sturgis for over 10 years, and it went back all the way to the Bay of Pigs.
So both Sturgis and Hunt had some connection to the Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba.
Well, Hunt's was very central group, and with regard to Sturgis, he had been involved in Cuban issues for a long time. In fact, at one time, he was a supporter of Castro.
Really?
Yeah.
But this, I mean, there were many people, Cuban expatriates, ex-CIA, that were really not too pleased with Kennedy's how he handled the Bay of Pigs. Is that right?
Many people blame, many in the Cuban community blame Kennedy for not providing air cover and not providing other kinds of, even I am told by very good sources that they had Marines on the two ships that were offshore, the American ships, and those had Marines that they were hoping, at least the Cuban people who were in the anti-Castro Cubans, that they would send.
One of those ships is the USS Essex, right?
That's right, the USS, which was never disclosed until late in, I think, in the 90s sometime, that the USS Essex participated.
We can't go too long because I want to get to the bottom line, but the three tramps, that kind of serendipitously in a way, were observed at the scene and went to a coal car. Is that correct?
That's right. I mean, they were observed by a guy up in a tower. There's a tower right behind the Texas Book Depository. And they were observed running down the tracks and getting into a coal car. And it's real important to understand, it's a coal car. They climb up into it and go down. I mean, you don't open a door on the side of the car. This is a coal car. And the coal is dumped in there. And there is a 302 by...
That's an FBI 302?
Yes, an interview of the guy who led them, who went and arrested him, climbed into the coal car and arrested the three tramps. And I can show you a picture.
Yeah, show us the picture if you would, Bob, if you can.
Well, this is, and on this particular picture, the third man is kind of, but you can see his shoes. This is a picture of the three tramps being led away by...
Okay, you got to hold it back a little further. You're a little too close on that. And up, yeah.
Tell me, can you see it?
Yes.
Well, and this individual right here, this policeman, he was the guy who climbed down in and got him out of the coal car.
Oh.
And somebody else was involved also, but he was the guy who actually made the arrest.
Now I need to disclose to our audience that, I want to press you on a lot of things, but you're a very cautious researcher and won't go too far. So, spoiler alert, you're not going to tell us who assassinated Kennedy. But what you really want to happen is that we as a people need to get access to these documents.
That's correct. I mean, I think enough years have passed and the American people, Congress made a decision back in the 90s that these documents should be produced, except, and it was a narrow exception, for national security.
And you, as you said earlier, it does not seem to be an acceptable explanation, because if Oswald was the sole shooter, what's the national security issue?
You said it. I don't know.
I'm going to push you here a little bit.
Yeah.
Based on what you researched, do you think that, or do you believe that Oswald was a sole shooter?
I believe there's a issue with respect to that, including issues that are raised by really knowledgeable, very, very knowledgeable individuals. And one of them is a professor at Maryland.
So bottom line is that what you're talking about here is that you think the American people need to have the truth, and it should be a search for the truth with integrity. Is that correct?
Well, I'd put it that way too. I mean, this has been, Congress made the decision. This is a rule of law issue. I mean, if there's to be produced, just because somebody doesn't want them produced is not a reason. Unless you now can convince the President of the United States that these are national security issues.
Okay, so you're not willing to say who assassinated Kennedy, but you're saying there are issues around the question of whether Oswald was solely involved, and those issues should be explored, and these documents might help us get to that answer.
Well, I should add, I mean, the House committee formed an investigation which was widely known by everyone in the 1970s. And I think they issued a report in 78 or 79. But they determined there probably was a conspiracy. Well, you don't conspire with yourself, you conspire with somebody else.
Now, who made this decision or conclusion?
A House committee on the assassination of President Kennedy. That was done in 1978 or 9. They issued their report.
And so it's the same Congress that says these documents should be disclosed.
Well, they had actually, it may not have been the same, there may have been a turnover, but I mean, they made the decision with respect to the documents in 1992. And there had been, in addition to the Rockefeller Commission, you had the House had its own commission looking at the issue of the assassination, and it made findings which are here.
So what you're going to show us is can you show us, as you're going through this, some reference materials that the audience can look at if they want to follow up on this?
Yeah, they look for the summary of the findings of the House Committee on Assassinations. And I'm sorry, I don't have the date that this was issued, but it was a finding that said number FC, the Federal Bureau of Investigation failed to investigate adequately the possibility of a conspiracy to assassinate the president.
Now, we're running out of time. We have about a minute left. Can you read off the titles of some books that people might look at in order to do some of their own research on this?
Well, I'll start with
We got
I'll
45 seconds.
the oldest one. This is Mark Lane, called Rush Judgment. He
Okay.
was one of the first who sat down and took issue with the Warren Commission.
Quick, show us one or two others.
This is Dayton Fonzie, and this is a real quality guy. He was the chief investigator for the House Committee in the 70s.
So I mean, there are others, but Bob, what you're telling us, there are sources, not conspiracy type sources, but sources that will give us solid information. Solid,
and they're very recent. There's one in 2018 that came out. It's been acclaimed.
So Bob, in a couple of seconds, what would be your message to our viewing audience with respect to these documents?
Well, if you want these documents made public, it appears to me the only way you make an appeal to the President of the United States, because he's the decision maker.
And there's no question in your mind that they're necessarily need to be disclosed.
No question.
Okay. Well, I think we have run out of time. This has been a broad topic to cover, but thank you, Bob, for bringing our attention to what is an old issue, but actually is a current issue. So thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for watching Access to Democracy.